Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'll shortly be handing over to the World Crafts Council Europe President, Elisa Guidi, for an official welcome. But first, just a few administrative matters. We'd love to hear where you're joining us from, so feel free to tell us in the chat. You can find that on the right-hand side of your screen. Please note that the webinar is being recorded and it will be published later online. If you have any questions for specific people, such as our speakers, you can make use of the Q&A boxes, which are also on the right-hand side, and we will have time at the end for answering these. Regarding the agenda for this webinar today, we will obviously do our best to try and stick to the time frame, but just a quick overview of what to expect in case you haven't seen our agenda already. After the official welcome from Elisa Guidi, we will have an introduction from María Iglesias, the team leader at the Cultural Policy Unit of the European Commission Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture. Following María, we will have a presentation from Victoria de Pereda. Victoria is a sustainability and design consultant, and her work focuses on defining and implementing projects and strategies related to products and services within the circular economy. Then we will have Kevin Rouff of ThusThat, an Amsterdam-based studio which bridges design and making with innovations in material science. And finally, at around 6:30, if we can stick to the time frame, we will have a presentation from Marita Setas Ferro. He is the founder, designer, and CEO of the brand Marita Moreno, which develops sustainable accessory lines. After that, we will open up for questions, and there'll be opportunity to also raise your hand. So we will wait for that at the end. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I now hand over to World Crafts Council Europe President, Elisa Guidi.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and to be with us with the webinar Crafting the Path to a Greener Europe. Of course, is a very important webinar for us. Is the new webinar that we organize in the framework of the new European Bauhaus online webinar series. As you know, we are partner as WCC-Europe in the network of the new European Bauhaus, and we are working in the topic of sustainability, circular economy, and the role that craft can play in building a more sustainable Europe. Okay, and a more sustainable economy too, because we are also speaking about economy. The webinar is organized in the framework also of the Crafting the Future project, which is a Creative Europe program project that we manage as WCC Europe, and we are very proud to do that. So it's an important phase of our activity, and we are really persuaded that craft people will play an important role in shaping a beautiful and sustainable future. And many craft people are working in that, and have been working in that in this path for several years. But we think that we need to share more knowledge about what's going on at the policy level, and we thank María Iglesias to be here with us to explain what's going on and the framework in which we are moving at European level about sustainability, about the European Bauhaus and what's going on. But we would also like to share to understand better what's going on, best practice, and what design can do for sustainability and for craft in sustainability. So, I mean, it's important for us to discuss all together about this topic. It's not just a topic, it's a very important concept for our actual life and for the future, and to work together to build a more sustainable future for us and for everybody. So, thank you to everybody, to the speakers that are here with us and that will share with us their experiences, their knowledge, and their information. And thank for all the attendees to be here for us, with us, because it's very important to spread throughout Europe those concepts. And please share your ideas, your experience through the chat. So I think that we need to respect the time, and I will leave the floor to María Iglesias for her intervention and for a speech. So thank you to everybody, and please, María, I leave you the floor.
Many thanks, Elisa. Just give me a second to share the screen so we can you see the slides? Let's, sorry, it's not here. So I hope you all can see the slides now.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Very good. So I will proceed. Then the only thing is that I'm afraid I cannot see the watch. So in case you see that I'm taking too much too much time, please let me know, okay? Because I cannot see that in the screen now. So many thanks for inviting me to this event. As Rachel said, I'm María Iglesias. I work for the European Commission. I'm team leader at the Cultural Policy Unit of DG EAC, the Director General dealing with education and culture. So I will mainly deal with the EU policy and actions to support culture, and also culture in relation to the green transition. So I hope that is fine with you. So just to start, a very quick reference to what we do, EU policy making in the field of culture, what are our competencies, and the two is that the European Union competencies in the field of culture are quite limited. What we do is we coordinate, we support, we coordinate, we complement the actions of the member states. And we do that by, of course, elaborating cultural policies, but also working on specific programs, cultural programs, as Elisa referred to before, to Creative Europe. And we do that in the frame of, or in the framework of certain political priorities. So we work under the Commission political priorities, and as you know, one of these priorities is for sure the European Green Deal. Then we have also our own strategic policy documents, let's say more focus on culture, and you have there in the screen the new European Agenda for Culture and the work plan for culture, for example. That is very important, and I will refer back to that in 1 second. And of course, we also have other important policy documents. But I think with these three are the most important ones you may want to retain. So for the work plan for culture, that is a work plan that is designed at the Council, and that very much establishes what are the priorities for a number of years. As you will see, for the current work plan for culture, we have 6 priorities, and 2 of them are directly linked to, let's say, the Green Deal or the sustainability dimension. One of these priorities is sustainability and cultural heritage. Another one is culture as a driver for sustainable development. We have been working very hard on this with the member states. Mainly it has been the experts from the member states have been working very hard on that. And I will refer later on to very recent reports that have been published in relation to these 2 priorities. For you to know that this work plan for culture is about to expire. It ends until the end of 2022. And we are working now on the definition of the new work plan for culture for the next years to come, from 2023 to 2026. And there, as you can imagine, it's very likely that issues related to the Green Deal will of course stay. I referred before to Creative Europe. Creative Europe, as you know, is our cultural program, the program that is indeed funding crafting Europe. So that is very good. And Creative Europe has a budget of 2.4 billion euro for the period, for the current programming period that is between 2021 and 2027. have to know that this budget has substantially increased if we compare with the former programming period, with the past programming period. And of course, this has been also to support the cultural and creative sectors that have been tremendously hit by the pandemic. So what are the general objectives of Creative Europe? Their general objectives are to safeguard, develop, and promote European cultural, linguistic, and diversity and heritage, and also to increase the competitiveness of the sector. But it's important to retain that inclusion and green issues are cross-cutting, let's say cross-cutting topics that also are present in the program. And in fact, if we look back at the last programming period, I put there, and when I distribute the slides, you will have all the links. I could put there the reference to a publication, a publication by the executive agency, where you can see the list of projects, and you can have information on all the projects that were dealing with gender equality, with digitalization, but also with sustainability in the former programming period. And we have realized that indeed we had a lot of projects that were dealing with green issues, and from very different perspectives. So some of them were dealing with the environmental impact of the sector. Of course, this is something that is key, how to reduce the carbon, the carbon footprint of the sector. But many others were also dealing with awareness raising, I think, and it is something that we very much insist on. The culture and creative sectors are great communicators and great eye-openers for these issues. There are other projects that are dealing with the sustainable management of urban and rural spaces, and of course, projects that are, proposing new narratives and new visions for the future. So this is a little bit satiric because I see that people see very well the slides, but I don't know how to fix it. Well, so Creative Europe is one of our, let's say, the more important, or Creative Europe is the culture program of the European Commission, but we have many other sources of funding for the cultural and creative sectors, of course, including crafts. And I put there some examples. Horizon Europe, big amount of money, also 2.28 billion for research and innovation, under a dedicated cluster to culture. And under this cluster, we also have the NEP as a key team for research. We have cohesion funds, and indeed there has been 39 billion euro investment that has been planned for culture and cultural heritage in 2014-2020, and other programs like Erasmus Plus, and of course, and we will talk about that in a second, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, and many others. The publication you have on the right part of the slide is the Culture EU Funding Guide. That is a publication a report we published almost 1 year ago, and there you have access. It's a tool where you can, in 3 clicks, you may have access to all the different opportunities for the cultural and creative sectors in more than 20 programs, European programs, more than 75 funding opportunities. For you to know that the guide has been translated to all the EU official languages. So I really encourage you to have a look and to look for opportunities. I was referring to the call to the Recovery and Resilience Facility. The Recovery and Resilience Facility, as you probably know, is the pillar of the recovery plan that was put in place by the institutions, by the European Union, to mitigate or to mitigate the impact of the crisis. As a whole, the Recovery and Resilience Facility has an enormous budget. It's more than 700 billion euros. And in fact, if we look at the RRF regulation, there is no specific earmark to culture. But what happened is that in the national recovery and resilience plans that member states had to prepare in order to access this funding, there were many member states, 18, that have decided to include specific measures to support the cultural and creative industries. If we put together all these measures, we have more than 10 billion euros that will be invested in the cultural and creative sectors in the future. This represents approximately 2% of the whole amount, and if you have a look to the fees, to this thematic report that we have published, you will see that we have very different measures that are very important for the sector, like member states that want to that will pass legislation to improve the working conditions and the status of artists and cultural workers. We have a lot of member states that have invested a lot of money on digitization of cultural heritage, on the digital transition, on digital skills for the sector, and so on. And of course, we also have a lot of measures that are there to facilitate the green transition. And for example, many member states have planned renovations aiming to increase the energy efficiency of cultural buildings or of cinemas and theaters. We have also member states that have or will implement measures to safeguard cultural heritage from climate change. And we have also some member states like Austria or France that have planned investment funds in order to help or to finance climate-friendly projects by the cultural and creative sectors. Here you have, in this slide, you have some examples from Italy, from Austria, France, Hungary, and again Italy, but there are many others. And I really, if you are interested to see what is happening in your member state, I would really recommend you to have a look at these fees and to consult your national plan. So what else? At the very beginning, I referred to the work plan for culture. And in the work plan for culture, if you remember, there were these priorities. And in fact, I refer to two reports that have been just published. Indeed, during the last 2 years, there were what we call open method of coordination groups, that are groups that are formed by member experts from member states. One of these groups, the one you have, the report, you have it in front of you, has been working on strengthening cultural heritage resilience for climate change. We had 50 experts working together to study the impact of climate change on cultural heritage. They have collected more than 70 best practices and produced a report with a set of important key recommendations for policymakers. You have the link you will receive the link to the report, and I would again encourage you to have a look. There are 14 case studies that concern cultural intangible heritage, and that also relate to craft. And what this report concludes is that there is an absolute need for cooperation, for identification of gaps, and for the exchange of best practices at the European level. Again, the report is produced in English, but you will have access to the executive summary in all the languages of the European Union. The second OMC group that is, let's say, closely related to our subject today is the OMC group. I don't know if you can see the title in the screen, but it's the OMC group on culture for sustainable development. Of course, this goes beyond the Green Deal. It goes beyond sustainability from the perspective of climate change, energy policies, and so, but has, of course, a strong connection. Here again, we had a team of experts from the member states that were mandated to exchange good practices on how culture is integrated in the sustainable development national strategies, and they were mandated to formulate recommendations on how to improve integration at the national level. The second mandate was to advise the member states and the European Union on how to improve the effectiveness and impact of European policies and instruments in cultural sustainable development, and also to exchange information and cooperate with key international organizations like the UNESCO. As a result of all this work, they have produced this very, very nice report, Stormy Times, that you can also access on our website, and that produce, in addition to a lot of examples, you will see that they have produced recommendations, and they have come with 11 messages for and from Europe to mainstream culture in our policies, and to build on this transformational power of culture to change, for change. And this is indeed very much linked to what the last part of my presentation, and one of the leitmotifs of today's webinar, that is the New European Bauhaus. The New European Bauhaus, as you well know, is a very much ambitious project. It's a young project because it has only hardly 2 years. That is very much about societal transformation. The Bauhaus is calling upon all of us to work together, to work with participatory approaches, to work across disciplines, in order to think, to imagine more sustainable and more inclusive and a beautiful future. As you may know, in the communication that was adopted September 2021, there are like four thematic themes or four topics in relation to which the New European Bauhaus has been working for the last year. These are reconnecting to nature, gaining a sense of belonging, prioritizing the places and the peoples that need it the most, and everything that is related to the circular economy and circular industrial ecosystem. Of course, the role that culture, and in particular design and architecture and crafts, can play here is enormous. It's not only that culture can be let's say an actor or a driver for transformational change, for conveying new meanings, but it's also true that more and more we need to rely on traditional crafts or on traditional know-how and traditional heritage in order to come with new innovative practices and to deal with the challenges we are facing. I wanted just to share with you a few things that have happened these years. The first thing we are very much proud of is the fact that the NEP community is growing all the time. We have a lot of supporters. We have more than 500 partners, among them the World Craft Council, but I hope also some of other organizations that are listening to us today. And we also see how our high-level roundtable is growing, 19 members already. With the NEP prizes, we have almost 99 projects that have postulated or have been selected as finalists or winners of the prizes. And we have the national contact points and so on and so on. So I think this is very positive. And also, I wanted to keep this slide because here you can see that among these 530 plus partners, we have many come from the cultural and creative sectors, and also many come from the cultural heritage and craft sector. So I think this is also very good and gives and emphasize this notion of the important role that culture and arts and crafts and architecture and design have to play in this amazing initiative that is the New European Bauhaus. So for the last two years, you have here the timeline for the last year that has been really the year of delivery. As you know, the Bauhaus has been built after a co-design phase where the community has discussed how they would like the Bauhaus to be built, and after that there was a communication, and then we had all the let's say all the calls that have been launched. We had, I don't know if maybe some of you have participated. We have had the NEP, the European Bauhaus Festival. We had the second edition of the European Bauhaus prizes with 2 winners indeed coming from the craft sector. We had a project that was, the name was Rico, about products made from cardboard, and there was another very nice project called Flower Matter, that were related to innovative textile material made from flower plants. During these last months, we also, as I said, we published a lot of calls. We had the selection for these lighthouse demonstrators that you may have heard about, and we had also we are having the NEP lab projects, and there I must admit that I'm not familiar with all, but we were working, for example, on the NEP Compass, that is a kind of compass for NEP projects, and that will be launched in the forthcoming months. So many things did really happen, and will continue happening in the future. So in this slide, you have also you have some reference to one of the, let's say, a series of calls that have been launched. Unfortunately, most of them are already closed, but I thought it would be interesting for you to be familiar with them, the lighthouse demonstrators, that I think we will hear a lot about that in the next years. But also there were a series of calls on local place-based initiatives, and also on citizens engagements and the co-creation of the public space. These were calls launched by the European Institute of Technology, and that, if I'm not wrong, are recurrent calls, so they will probably be launched next year again. I also put there another call under the program Rouff, that, as you probably know, is this call was targeting designers and creatives. And the last one you have on the screen is the only one that is still open, and it's a call that has been launched by quite recently on a European urban initiatives. In particular, and because they are the things that we work more closely in our, let's say, in our unit and in our DG, I have put here examples of other forthcoming actions. These are not, let's say, NEP actions per se, so these are related to other actions that may be linked to the NEP, because they may refer to the NEP in their priorities or in the topics, and so. But I thought it would be nice for you to know. So, for example, what we have at the very beginning is the eTwinning online annual conference that is taking place tomorrow and after tomorrow. This is about education, and the theme of this eTwinning conference this year is imagining education in the future, beautiful, sustainable, and together. Of course, there is a very close link to the NEP, as you may imagine, and during these 2 days there will be a lot of workshops and presentations where you can see where new educational methods will be shown that relate to these core values of the NEP. Another thing that we will see in the near future is the possibility of applying to artistic residencies in line with the NEP priorities. In fact, you may know that there is a very nice big action that has been recently launched. A mobility action is called Culture Moves Europe, and this action of Culture Moves Europe will be funding individual mobilities and also residencies. So when hosts will be applying in order to get funding for organizing artistic residencies, they will have the possibility to link or to choose among their priorities the NEP-related priorities. So we are confident that we will have some residencies linked to the NEP in the near future. We will also have a peer learning action in the field of high quality architecture that will be more targeted to regional and local authorities. And we also are looking forward to see possible synergies between the NEP and the new knowledge and innovation community that will be launched in a couple of months, that on cultural, creative sectors and industries. We also expect to publish a Discover EU NEP route before the end of the year. And well, I think this is a good example of all the things. As you can see, the NEP's really about a lot of different initiatives that are happening, and these are the ones that I would say are more related to our field of work in our unit. Just to
María,
finalize.
No, you've got your last slide. Thank you. If you can wrap up.
The last one. I'm
sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, so now the last slide, this slide is just to make sure that you have the link to the webpage where all these funding opportunities will be regularly published. And I think with this, I will finish. Please stay tuned. And of course, should you have any questions, don't hesitate to come to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, María. Very interesting. We really appreciate it. Please feel free to post questions for María in the chat. And a reminder, at the end of the webinar, we'll open up the floor for questions too. So if you've joined us a bit late, welcome everyone. We're now going to hand over to our second speaker, Victoria de Pereda. As an industrial designer and 10 years as a sustainability director, Victoria has been involved in a wide range of activities, including higher education design, consulting on international projects for social development related to crafts and entrepreneurship, and helping companies and organizations transition towards more sustainable practices. So thank you very much, Victoria. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to this inspiring webinar. I really love what María said, and I think what you're going to see now is very aligned with the Bauhaus initiative. Let me share the screen first. Okay. Let me know if you see it.
Yes.
Is it okay? Okay. And let me take out all these little things on the screen. Sorry, just 1 second. Okay. Sorry again. Okay. So I want to start talking about the challenges that we have today, which are urgent challenges. And I'm going to focus on what really is linked to crafts, which is resources, waste, and consumption habits. Even if climate change, I think, is one of the urgent matters now. And of course, all of them are related with energy production, soil erosion, biodiversity, and the way we really define our life today. And I want to start with the Overshoot Day, which is a concept that talks about human demands on nature and how they exceed the capacity of the nature on Earth to regenerate those resources. And this year came on July 28th. That means that from that day on, we live in an ecological deficit. To translate this means that today, to meet our needs, we need more than 1.5 planets. And according to WWF, in the future, in the 2050, we will need 3 planets. We cannot continue to extract resources and use virgin materials the way we are doing now. And this is absolutely related with circular economy. We will see it after. And well, we reached in 2019 the 100 billion tons of materials extracted. And this all is the result of our linear production system. And we continue in this linear production system because the world now is just 1.6% circular. The rest of resources, where are they? What are we doing with them? This linear take, make, waste system continues with a great inertia. And it's also the result of our success indicator, which is the GDP of countries, and based on the infinite economic growth. And this growth is also based in resources consumed. But we are just one planet. So if we have just one planet, how can we continue to really be so blind? And the results and the needs now are to disconnect growth and well-being from resources consumption. As you see in this graphic, which is, I really think it's great and very interesting, it's from the UNEP. And we have to really disconnect our impact from the capacity of development, well-being, economic activity, and of course, resource use. We definitely have to pass from this obsolete model from the 19th and 20th century, which is unsustainable, in which economy rules the way we live societies, and societies give pressures over the ecosystems, to a sustainable way of living in which we respect and create healthy ecosystems for society and other species to thrive. And of course, we use economy for that. Economy is a tool for society to thrive. So if we define sustainability as the ability to endure, guaranteeing quality of life, well-being of the ecosystems, and promoting development and prosperity for present and future generations, we have to redefine our economy, and also the way we relate between us, among us, and our relationship to the planet. And create these sustainable economic systems, Maria was talking about them before, that offer new opportunities, but always within the planetary boundaries. So in this new model, we see these economies popping up and taking place as a sharing economy, inclusive economy, and the circular economy, which are all related. And let's focus on circular economy and how crafts can contribute to this and sustainability. Circular economy is about industrial symbiosis, eco-innovation, eco-design, biomimicry, cradle-to-cradle, and regeneration. Some of these concepts, we'll see them after, we'll explain them after. So the schools of thought from which circular economy comes started in 1970s, more or less, but the two we are going to see today are very related to production and consumption system that is sustainable. And one is Cradle to Cradle from Michael Braungart, a chemist, and William McDonough, an architect. They launched the book on 2002, Remaking the Way We Make Things. And it is based on natural ecosystems. There is no waste concept on nature. Waste equal nutrients, designed for continuous recovery. And in the end of the use, product and materials become nutrients to something new. And those can be collected and recovered. They also, the other principles is to maximize the use of renewable energy and to promote healthy ecosystems and celebrate diversity. For this, they define two different loops: the biosphere, made out of biological nutrients, and the technosphere, made from technical nutrients. Those biological nutrients are bio-based materials that can regenerate through composting life systems, and they are renewable. And the non-renewable materials that are nutrients for the technical or the technosphere, the technical loop, can be reused endlessly in the same loop. That means recycle. They have a certification with 5 different levels, and they started many years ago, but lately the certification really took an importance that they didn't see before. The other, I mean, one of the main accelerators of circularity in the planet today is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And the 3 principles from this foundation come also from Cradle to Cradle and from the rest of the influences they have since the 1970s. And they are talking about designing out of waste and pollution, keep products and materials in use, and regenerate natural systems. As you see, they're very similar to Cradle principles. So it's a way of designing and producing and consuming within the ecosystem limits. And this is a butterfly diagram from Ellen MacArthur, which is based on cascades from the user to the recycle, the different levels, and how can we achieve circularity and close the loops in each different level. These 4 loops are the main ones, and circular economy is all about retaining value. The better the integrity of the product is preserved, the more value is retained. And as you see here, the more value is to maintain, I mean, it's more valuable a product that maintains and prolongs itself close to the user. The second step will be reuse, redistribute, and share. Then remanufacture and upgrade. And the last loop is recycling. So circular economy is not about recycling. Recycling is the end of the tube, is the last thing we should do with materials. Before that, we have to maintain, we have to reuse, redistribute, share, remanufacture, upgrade, everything which is in our hands. And this is a transition from a linear economy that takes, makes, and dispose to which is degenerative, to a circular economy who is regenerative and uses renewable resources, reduces, repairs, and recycles, and differentiates the 2 loops. Circularity is a way to achieve the SDG, which is our path to a sustainable life in the future. And it's closely related to the SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production. And let me go through these targets, which are absolutely linked to crafts, and also with the achievement of circularity, which is sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources, environmental, avoiding externalities through management of chemicals, waste, and through the life cycle of the product, and reduce emissions to air, water, and soil, reuse waste generation, recycle and reuse and prevention and reduce as the main actions. And then lifestyles in harmony with nature and awareness for sustainable development. So how can crafts contribute to this regeneration? First, through life cycle approach, keeping materials in use, keeping products in use, designing out of waste and pollution, resilience, and local. And these, I wanted to compare what crafts are giving us today and the opportunities also of their contribution to this circularity and sustainability. On one side, we know that traditional artisans have an holistic approach to the process, the whole making system. They control from the extraction to the raw materials until the use stage. And this cycle approach is extremely interesting. You can see an example here of Textura Natura de Pilar Ureña, in which she's using the byproduct of the banana crops, and you can see here that she transforms this byproduct, which are leaves, into a material that can be recrafted afterwards. So by controlling the whole process, you can integrate innovation. And you not only can integrate innovation, you acquire a materials and process expertise. So the opportunity for this is to have this life cycle approach and be conserved and use eco-design strategies in the process. Monitor the product and the impacts as much as possible with this life cycle approach, and of course integrate the end of use as a fundamental stage on the life cycle of a product. We normally don't think about what is going to be the product once no one wants it, and this is a must today. We have to avoid waste as much as possible. Keep materials in use. This is the concept of industrial symbiosis, is reusing scraps from other industries. And well, as you can see here, there is this company, Ashanti, they use scraps from the garment industries, and they woven them in the traditional African loom. And they design these beautiful products by doing so. And on the other side, we have the production scraps can be reused internally. And as you can see here, from Plart, she's using different clays for the patterns of their own ceramics by using the leftovers. And so the opportunity here for this sustainable contribution is to use recycled materials, avoiding virgin materials, avoids destruction and requires less energy. And through design and innovation, we can increase the capacity of reuse the internal scraps within our workshops. On the other side, we have keep products in use. Crafts are not subject to fashion or trends. Crafts are long-lasting, and their quality materials and their production system guarantees also this long-lasting product close to the user. And they also have embodied these cultural values. They create a special bond with the user, which makes the user care more about them and maintaining them closer. And the opportunities is don't design for trends. Don't plan this perceived obsolescence. Develop services to keep the product in use as much as possible by repairing your products, upgrading them. If for the customer about the correct maintenance of your products, and have a nice storytelling, have a deep, convincing storytelling to communicate all these values to the customer. Then local materials, that can be returned to the biosphere. Design out of waste and pollution. Not always crafts are meant out of waste and pollution. So this is something that with consciousness and being conscious, we have to go through. Resources can be recovered or recycled. Crafts can use renewable energy. So we cannot use or not should use chemicals. We prioritize certified materials, and traceability and transparency from raw materials to end of use is key also in our process. So this is an example of a product. It is made with washable paper, and they use, as you can see down, Ocotex material certified, GOTS material certified. So they guarantee somehow that the energy embedded in those materials and the way those materials were produced are much more sustainable. Resilience, this is one characteristic also of crafts. small-scale productions, flexible to adapt to climate and social economic crisis. Skills and knowledge are transferred from one generation to other, and crafts have an intimate relationship with nature. As we saw before, this byproduct from plantations, this is something that you can see in crafts all over the place. They use natural materials. On the other side, we have threats to this resilience. They are difficult. It's difficult today to continue with the generational transmission. And since craft production takes more time, and not always the market recognizes this value and the cost of it. And sometimes artisans might have difficulties to make a living. So the proposal is to collaborate to create shared value. Here is a company, La Boca Argentina, that for more than 150 years has been making these incredible textiles with the cabanas loom. And I shortly heard that they might have closed. So this is an example of the fragile situation of transmitting this knowledge from one generation to another. But creating shared value, this is an example, collaborating with other industries in this industrial symbiosis, we can create products that can last time and at the same time add value. And this is a company that I really like, is Elvis and Crece. They are artisans, they reuse materials from different places. Those are just two examples. They reuse much more materials. One, they have a collaboration with the London Fire Brigades, and other with the Barbary Foundation. With the London Fire Brigades, they are using their fire hose, the one that are the commission, and they avoid going to landfill 200 tons of material since they started. And the lining of the products they make, they are luxury products, is made up of military-grade parachute silk. On the other side, they had this Barbary Foundation collaboration in which they use the offcuts, leather offcuts from Barbary, and they do this beautiful product that you see on the right, made out of small pieces of leather. Traditional crafts are local. They stimulate local economies. They create community and cultural identity. They preserve local knowledge. And because they are local, they reduce energy and supply chain cost. And at the same time, they reduce emissions. So the opportunity is to create and to increase the presence of these creative organizations, and that really are cultural diversity, our community pride, and they enhance the quality of life. And just to wrap up, those are the concepts related to crafts, circularity, and sustainability. It's thinking systems or principles, collaborate, have an holistic approach, communicate value, be in contact with nature, accountability, community, skills and knowledge, cultural identity, and local. Sustainable development is a challenge and an opportunity for creatives. It's not a constraint when defining, creating, or designing new products. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. It's very useful to have this applied, particularly within the craft sector. It was really interesting, and I hope we'll have some lively discussions around this. So just remember to post any questions you'd like for Victoria, and we can address them a bit later on. Next up, we have Kevin Rouff of Studio ThusThat, along with fellow founder Paco Buckelman. The studio's work primarily focuses on the use of uncommon materials, such as industrial waste, to suggest alternative futures. They work within a range of scales, all the way from collectible objects through to interior design and architecture. So Kevin, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
I am I am ready. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the whole World Craft Council team, and also to Victoria and Maria for their presentations. I'll just go ahead and start, and hopefully there's no hiccups with the sharing. Let's see, let's give this a shot. And can you see which screen are you seeing my presentation or my notes?
We can see your presentation.
Perfect. Okay. So, all right. Okay. So everybody, hello. So as mentioned, I'm Kevin from Studio ThusThat. We're based in Amsterdam. We were previously based in the UK, and then we moved to Amsterdam during COVID. So today I'll talk just briefly. This is sort of the plan of action, is that I'll talk a bit about who we are, and then go into some of our past work, 2 projects specifically, and then sort of leave with some kind of wider questions to think over. So our studio is led by myself on the left and Paco on the right, Paco Bokelman. Paco is from Münster in Germany, and I'm originally from Santa Fe in the US, which is a town that has a sort of rich heritage of crafts and sort of blending of Native American and Hispanic cultures, as well as a rich heritage of understanding the land and minerals, which maybe explains some of my own interests in this space. So Paco and I both met at the Royal College of Art during our master's degree. And from there, we sort of just took off with some projects, and then it led to forming a studio together. And the studio that we formed is really focused on exploring the backgrounds and origins of materials in our everyday lives. And primarily so far, that's been looking at the wastes of industrial production, especially within the mining sector, looking at both the good and the bad and trying to suggest alternative ways of seeing. So it situates itself at the intersection of design, art, and science, and obviously craft is part of it. So before we jump in, I like to preface a bit with this question generally: what is waste? It was just touched on in the previous topic too, that the waste is kind of not really a real thing, and it's maybe a very human thing. But there's also a misunderstanding generally that when we think of waste, we think of stuff leaving in bags from your kitchen. And that's really the end of life waste, and it's quite the kind of visible and obvious stuff. But there's also waste of production and waste of creation. So defining characteristic of humans is that we do make waste, and we produce waste when we consume, but also when we produce. And this waste of production is often hidden and invisible. It's kind of the before life waste. It's the stuff that was made before anything ever made it into your hands. And mining waste really falls into this camp. It's waste that you probably have not seen very much of. And there's a lot of terms around it that kind of make it confusing. There's a lot of confusion between byproduct and waste. So we use the word waste quite liberally here to mean anything that's kind of left behind and unwanted and possibly stigmatized. So many of these wastes are classified as hazardous, the ones that we work with. And this shouldn't actually make you so afraid, in the sense that most people who work in ceramics, for instance, know that a lot of the materials they work with are also classified hazardous. Fine quartz, for instance, is quite a hazardous material. But the difference with these materials is that they're in a huge scale, and they also are perceived as inherently dangerous, almost evil. In terms of physically speaking, they're quite formless. They're often muddy and wet and liquid and kind of dusty. And visually, they're very colorful. And often we associate color to beauty and natural beauty, but once it gets past a certain point of contrast and saturation with the surrounding environment, it becomes kind of unnatural and synthetic and dangerous. So clearly here we can see that aesthetics from these materials play a key part of our perception of the materials. So generally speaking, we can say that waste is something that has lost its perceived value, but also that's lost its perceived use. So looking at the first part of this, was our first project really focused on this idea of perception around a material. So this was done during our master's at the Royal College of Art. And in this project, we made some ceramic tableware from the waste of producing aluminium, which you wouldn't expect to look like this when we hear of aluminium, because surprisingly, aluminium, the metal, does not come from the earth in a shiny or metallic form. Actually, it starts here with bauxite. And this is mined all over the world in places like Australia, China, Brazil, and very much in Guinea. and shipped to refineries, in very much paired with the exploitation of cultures and people and also the land. And it goes to places where there's cheap energy. But from the stone, they get this white powder, which is alumina, which is then melted and turned into aluminium. But obviously, in the process of going from this red stuff to the white stuff, we have to wonder, and to the metal stuff, we have to wonder where all the red went. And this is what's left behind. So this is called red mud. It's caustic, which is kind of the opposite of an acid. It's very messy, and it stains absolutely everything. It's classified as hazardous in most places, which greatly limits the reuse. So for every part of aluminium that you see around you, your computers, your phones, there's 2.5 times that amount of red mud produced somewhere and left in a giant landfill. So this is sort of showing that ratio in this image. And the result of this is that you get about 150 million tons of red mud produced each year and left in landfills around the world. So I saw that people in the room, some of you were in Ireland, there's one in West Ireland, there's some in Germany, there's quite a few of them in France, Hungary, Romania, Canada, Russia, pretty much everywhere. We've used quite a few now from these different sites around Europe. And if you look at this image, the distance from top to bottom of that is about 7 kilometers across, and it's about 30 meters deep full of red mud. So it's a huge global stockpile, about 4 billion tons, which it's hard to imagine what those numbers mean, but I think I did a calculation, and each year we produce enough red mud to stack to the moon and back in barrels like 6 times or something. It's some very large sum. And it results in these kind of strange, dark, beautiful images when viewed from above. But there's obviously environmental implications, because when things do go wrong, they go very wrong. So this was actually in Hungary in 2010. And this is at more and more risk because of changing weather patterns with climate change. A lot of the models that were made for storing these hazardous wastes were based on older climate models. And this is obviously interesting to us, this environmental aspect. But actually, and quite frankly, what first drew us to the space was this tension between the scale of this problem with the invisibility, we had never heard of it, and also the fact that it's quite relevant, because a lot of these metals are very important today. And we were definitely not the first to take interest in it, and we're very aware of that. And the inventor of the process to actually produce aluminium from bauxite, Bayer, one of the methods, had already noted that red mud was produced and that there were maybe possible uses for it. So this is in around 1888. And since then, there's been decades of research, especially with interest in sustainability. There's been a lot of research into this space from scientists. And showing that there's definitely ways to use red mud to positively offset problems in other industries. And so we sort of wondered, why wasn't it actually being used? So the question we often get is, why didn't we make bricks from this? Because clearly that sounds like it would solve the problem. And the reality is that with a lot of these issues, they're much more complex than a magic silver bullet, meaning just a perfect solution. There is a lot of limiting factors. So one of them is the economics of scale. So you're competing with things like the concrete and brick industry, and they're quite slow and sluggish to pull these things in. There's a lot of legislative barriers because it is a hazardous waste, and those barriers are there for good reason, but they sort of create a tension between the different players and people that are trying to promote this material. And then the last big sort of barrier is public perception. People are skeptical about using these wastes, and they're all interdependent, these things. But us as makers, we were doing design, but we were very interested in craft and making. We found that last option, the perception, was perhaps something we could tackle. So for us, we started asking, how could art or design or making bring something new to the table, and what would be our role? So scientists ask a lot of questions about performance and economics, and we can ask different questions, such as, can this waste be useful? Could it be sustainable? Could the same sort of scary colors be switched into something quite beautiful? And the goal is the same, is trying to bring value to a material. And for us, it's more emotional and aesthetic. And they're complementing approaches. So instead of bricks, we made tableware. One of the reasons for this, there are different uses of this material, but for us, ceramics communicated this finesse and fragility, which contrasted the kind of brute nature of industry. It was this idea of transforming from a wet mud into this solid form. And also we wanted to provoke people and have them ask questions, because if science says it's safe to use this material, would we eat from the material? Would we drink from it? And it's about challenging our desire for these perfectly clean materials that we have around us, and sort of making us more accustomed to a future in which secondary materials may be part of our everyday. So it was really about telling a story. And we continue to work with this material kind of regularly. So these are different collections we made with it. But we're now very much eager to work towards architectural solutions. It's a very slow process. As I mentioned, there's a lot of challenges, mostly that it's quite hard to convince people to try a new material. So we're working hard at this, and it's something that's currently on our sort of primary goals, is to get it used in architecture, but it's a very slow process. So these are other collections we did, always kind of simple forms, referencing the typologies of factories, chimneys, silos. Some of the simplicity is because the material itself is quite limited in terms of the workability. But also we really wanted to draw people's attention to the material and not get too distracted by too many complexities of style. So as I mentioned, waste is also very much tied to this notion of losing usefulness. So the second project I'll speak about is also looking at a different metal. This is copper, and it's less about perception and more about what the waste material can do. So copper is a fascinating metal. It's the oldest metal mined by humans, so almost 10,000 years. It's 100% recyclable. Like aluminium, the difference is that 80% of all the copper that's ever been mined is still circulating. So we're quite good at recycling it, I would say. And it's literally everywhere. We just don't realize it. Copper is very hidden. It's part of our electric future. It's in wires, it's in coils, it's in engines, it's everywhere. So for instance, a wind turbine has about 5 tons of copper cabling and coils. So the demand is growing very fast for copper, but the quality of the actual stone that we're mining is decreasing quickly. So now we're having to mine entire mountains. So this is in Chile. It's the largest copper mine in the world, which that might be soon to change with Mongolia. But its entire mountains are being dug up just to make wires. And it's obviously paired again with the exploitation of countries and lands. So growing demand and a lowering quality of the stone inevitably means more waste as well. And so one of these wastes is slag. Slag is basically man-made lava. It's the impurities that are accumulated when you melt everything down. You get the kind of impurities, which is this molten stuff, and you throw it off to the side and pour it into massive mounds. It's not new. It's been around since the industrial era. So basically even before, they used ancient slag to trace early activities of humankind, but you'll find a lot of slag heaps around Europe in industrial zones. So this is in Cornwall, a photo I took in Wheel Maiden. There's some in Germany. There's some all over northern France. You'll see them. There's usually a strange looking mountain that pops out of nowhere. And often if you see any stuff that looks volcanic, but you're in a zone where there is no volcanoes, it's probably slag. So often you'll find it on the beach. It's also entered into the cultural landscape even. And we would think that copper is recyclable, so we should just recycle. And I think it was mentioned earlier that recycling is kind of the lowest value. That seems like a great solution, but obviously, and we're quite good in Europe with that. So more than half of our copper is from recycling, but recycling produces waste. So that is a recycling slag heap behind a pile of recycling metal. And so you see the kind of new mountains of slag emerging alongside the old industrial ones. So on the right is a mining slag heap from around the early 1900s, and on the left is a recycling slag. But the interesting thing about slag is that it's been through this high temperature process, like volcanic lava. So it allows it to be used as a geopolymer, which is basically a new cementitious material, a new kind of cement without using cement. It has 80% lower carbon footprint, or up to 80%, without any sacrifice of performance. It's even partially recyclable. And so in this sense, you're using kind of one problem of one industry and to offset another's industry. And we know, I think a lot of you probably know, cement is responsible for a lot of the carbon emissions. So we were invited by scientists in Belgium and a copper recycler in Belgium to kind of act as designers or makers in residence with them, which was a really interesting fusion of science and research from the perspective of a designer and maker, and kind of playing on each other's strengths and trying to take stuff that was stuck in small little lab tests, often EU funded, EIT funded, and trying to explore what we can do with them at a larger scale and quickly. So we did this whole project in about 2 months, I think. Yeah, 7-8 weeks. So we arrived there, learned their research, and then tried taking each element of their research and exploring it in a made object. So different techniques, some of them kind of, strange and silly, but that's kind of the value of our approach, is that we're a bit more free to experiment and to try different methods of communication. So I can't go into each of these right now just for the sake of time, but basically different chairs, different objects, each made in a very sort of free form method. And it really showed the value of collaborating and playing off each other's strengths. And so this culminated, these pieces went on to be exhibited around in different places, and some of them are in permanent collections. But the sort of end of this project, we actually had a factory, an exhibition at the factory. So this is actually at the copper factory, and we hosted it for all the people who worked at the factory, who are surrounded by this waste every day and had never seen it used in this way. And we also invited industry members and scientists and even architects, and kind of had everybody working together or exploring this together and letting them imagine what you could do with it. Because again, obviously you could make tiles and bricks, but that's sometimes giving a solution up front is a bit too obvious. So we wanted to sort of spark the imagination and let them imagine their own uses. So yeah. So since then, we actually went back to some of the techniques we learned during that residency and continued exploring our own ways of making them. So we went back to coppersmithing, actually, which is like a very traditional method of working copper craft, actually. So it's kind of a dying craft, especially within Europe. There's not very many of them. So this is Michael Johnson in Cornwall and Newlyn. I was one of the last working coppersmiths of the UK. And sort of learning a bit what he does, but also just kind of trying our own hand at coppersmithing, especially once we left the UK, and trying to join copper back to its waste to sort of connect the stories of copper and waste back together. So we made these pieces. So it's hard to tell the scale here, but this is about as tall as a person, and making a sort of strange monolithic objects that give a more broader story. Yeah. So telling a story basically that includes both the metal, but also the entire material palette, from the recycling heaps and slag heaps, and then through all the different amounts of processes that they go through, and to show how much we depend on them, but show them also in a new way. So again, just like with Red Mud, we're also trying to develop this now into a larger scale, because that's ultimately the hope, is that we can see this at a larger scale. So we actually came up with a process inspired by a traditional jewelry making that uses enameling. So not ceramic glazing, but actually fusing glass or vitreous enamel that you would use in jewelry making, fuses it to the slag geopolymer, and it's kind of remarkable that it works. And so that's something that we've been trying to grow and see what we can do with it, because this is not actually possible with regular concrete. And so that's sort of the two projects I wanted to talk to you about, but I'll leave you now in the last few minutes with some general questions to think over. So going back to this idea of what is waste. So Brian Thiel is an author of this book, Waste, and he says waste is every object plus time. And that's true, but that's very functional and object-oriented mindset, because it's true that an object like a vase or something doesn't resist time and eventually might become waste. But if you look through more of a material lens, you see that materials never waste, they just change form. And it's really what we decide to call waste or not. So a good example of this is, this was a waste site in California. It's Boron, California. It was a borax mine. And it was kind of left alone and abandoned for many years. And they then recently found out, and some miners were kind of independently mining it for trace amounts of gold. And they kind of just let them do their thing. But eventually they find out that the waste site is probably the largest lithium deposit in all of North America. So now it's the largest lithium mine in North America, and it's just mining their own waste. So obviously there's monetary incentive there. But another example that's more ubiquitous is fluoride. It was an agricultural waste of the 1950s, and they need to figure out what to do with it. And they found out it had this use in dentistry, and now it's in all of our water. And there's a lot of people that are against this, of course, but reality is that it is everywhere now, and it was once an agricultural waste. So many people are still against this, and that goes to show the difficulties too in generally in working with waste. So another question is, what's the difference between a quarry and a mine? They're basically the same thing. A quarry, at least this might be hard to translate in for those of you who maybe aren't native English speakers, but a quarry is basically mining stones, and it brings to mind kind of nice vernacular architecture, pastoral countryside settings. Mining kind of makes you think of devastation and the Anthropocene. And this kind of goes to this thing of also what's the difference between a natural and a man-made material. We scrutinize them differently. So for instance, red mud, a lot of people ask us, isn't it radioactive? And some of it is, but a lot of it is actually well below any sort of threshold that would be allowed in any building materials. But nobody asked this question about granite, which granite as a stone is slightly radioactive and is higher than most stones. So there's an interesting kind of discrepancy that we have between natural and man-made materials, and for good reason many times, but also sometimes it might be a bit ill-suited and maybe is a product of consumption that we just want the cleanest, nicest, purest materials always. And then the last question I'll leave you with is there a limit to aestheticizing the unwanted? So this example is in the south of France in Vitrolles, which was it is a red mud waste site from the 1950s, and it's been there left out in the open since the 50s. And it's sort of eschewed all attempts to remediate it. And so they tried to recently to finally remediate it. But it's been there for so long that people actually believe it's part of the national sort of the sort of natural heritage of the area now. And so it's actually being resisted. And there's also some political tensions there that played out back in the day, but it's become a kind of symbol of that area. And it's actually being part of the patrimoine national, I guess, or the natural patrimonial heritage of that site. And now it's become aestheticized and part of the landscape. So no remediating it, at least for now. So that's it. Feel free to ask any questions in the future and obviously in the Q&A later. And I will stop sharing.
Kevin, thank you. Wow, that was really fascinating. And it's brilliant to see new applications and ways of thinking about the concept of waste and innovation. We'll post a link to the website of Studio ThusThat in the chat, because I'm sure many of you want to check out their work in more detail. So Costanza, if you could please do that. Thank you. So thank you so much, Kevin. Just a reminder that the website is being recorded. So if you'd like to revisit the presentations, we will share these via YouTube and our social channels of World Crafts Council Europe. So keep an eye out for that. Then next up, and our final speaker for this webinar is Marita Setas Ferro. She is the founder, designer, and CEO of Marita Moreno, an award-winning sustainability accessory brand. Thank you, Marita. If you're ready, you can take over.
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. It's really interesting to talk about sustainability and craft, and also about fashion. Fashion is a business that is really hard for sustainability, because it's one of the most polluting industries that we have, but we try to do it the best way. So thank you. And we are going really to talk about craft sector as a driver of sustainability, mainly about the brand. And what I'm going to talk about is our sustainable brand that develops eco-design products, can gather handicrafts, industry, and technology. And also we can create some synergies that we can develop projects, increasing the visibility of Portuguese culture and heritage in contemporary design objects. So this is the main thing that we are going to talk about in the brand. So this is a resume about what we are talking about. This is some of the products that are using some craft and crafters, Portuguese crafters in production. And I have it here physically. So after that, we can see it and discuss a little bit about that. So this is the video. We are not going to hear the music, but it's not a problem. It's with the English legends. So you saw some hands and some people working. It was Mr. Cruz. He's 78 years old and he's working with us doing some prototypes of the bags. So our DNA is talking about what is made in Portugal, linked with contemporary design products of high quality, and placing these products in what we call platform on new luxury. What we call about new luxury. New luxury is a name that we gave to the products that tell a story, that are numbered, that are signed by the creator, that placing them in a perspective of valuing the object for the tangible, for the qualities and production. That is really important, but most of all for the intangible values. This is the most important for us, where we talk about heritage, we talk about culture, and we talk about story that this product tells. And so this is what we try to make the difference, is telling these histories and in products. So you can see is Guarda Vieira. She's working in a space that it was in Métier d'Art. It was really interesting for the people who was watching in this space to see her working. So our mission is also to contribute for the innovation in creation of and productions of objects of daily life. So talk about bags and we talk about shoes and how we can put some history, how we can put some heritage in these products. That's what we are talking about, and that's what we are doing in some of the products that we made. And we evaluate also the products and materials made in Portugal. We try to combine the artisanal with the industrial. It's really important. And also the traditional with technological. So we try together different areas and putting them in the best way. So the brand creates in Portugal and we try to sell it to the world. And this is the hands of Mr. Cruz in the atelier making the prototype of the bag. So our values are sustainability, labor and national production, local and natural raw material, product customization, and social responsibility. What you see on the right is a collection of wooden handbags made with a certified artisan from Barcelos that we made us also a limited series of these bags. How we try to do our strategies for transformation. So we framed sustainable development goals in our brand and in our company, and mainly with number 8, promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth. And this we try to focus a lot of craftsmanship, because we think the crafters need some stage for their work, and so they need also that some brands that are more known or some fashion brands to bring them to the stage and to show the work that they are doing. So they could be, they could earn more, they could go to grow on their economic level. So it's very important for this. And of course, the 12 responsible consumption and production. So we are very focused also on that. We also use some of the principles of eco-design. Yes, we produce goods because we are a fashion brand that meet the needs of consumer, but we using the minimum resource levels, and we having the minimal impact on the environmental and society. And this is very important because we not only use the remain of previous collection, we also use the remains of the cutting of the little pieces. So we try to use everything on further collections or props or other uses that we do. So we try also to think that brand as an innovative and transforming element of society, not only about the way that we present the collections, not only about the way that we work with crafters, with industry and with technology, but also the way that we speak, and we try always to speak about sustainable and fashion. And we start to talk a little bit about Azores collection. This is the result of a very interesting meeting that was begun in 2017. And the name of the shoes are names of Azores sites, very specific. Caldeira, Lagoa, Furnas, and Pico. Pico is the island, and the other ones are very specific places. So it starts with 2017 when I was a trainer. A very specific project, Craft and Art project. It was financed by the European Union, and it was for Innovate Arts and Crafts. So I was for 8 days in 3 islands in 3 months. So in these 3 training seasons, we tried to do things with the crafters that I don't know. It was not done before with them. So it was very interesting for the experience was very interesting. And above all, I think it came out with very nice experience and very nice results. So what we have done there is we try to keep in mind the reality of each craftsman. So they still do what they do, but we direct a little bit information and training to enhance the know-how of each one of them and for them to produce what is made, but crossing areas, themes, techniques, knowledge, realities and experience, and also other materials. We try them to explain and to explore that. So we want the artisan to develop new products for the markets they already exist, but also for the new markets that are arising for new consumers. So we can give the economic growth that we are thinking of for the crafters. And these products are intended to be differentiators, also innovative in concept, also in shape and materials, and with more value. So one of the things that we feel when we were in the Azores, that artisan was the poor relative of the local economy. Is always like I think they do aside. So we try to put that a little bit better, a little bit higher, and to base this production not in traditional techniques, but to level them to this platform of new luxury, the handmade products with history, and that carries the heritage and Portuguese culture. So this was what we were trying to do. But also for that, we have to try the artisan to open himself to other knowledge, other aesthetics. It was very important that, and also new technologies for working there with what we call the new artisans, artists, creatives, designers, and architects that are also makers. And we value this traditional knowledge, but they want to know, they want to go back in time, but also they want to make new and different projects for a sustainable future. So the methodology was very simple. The crafter made presentation of their product and answering fundamental questions: what, whom, why, and how they do it. Mainly vegetable fibers with a very different kind of products, of craft products, very interesting. Mainly the fig kernel, it's not very usual. Textiles, embroidery, laces, patchwork, hand weaving. Ceramics, fish scales. It's very important because we are in Iceland, so we have a lot of fish. And scales was a very indigenous product that they have it, and they could use it in some handcraft works. Also religious representations like registros and lapinhas, and we can talk about this later, but it's very interesting, it's a very interesting product also. So for our hand, as trainees, we present new and contemporary and different and international examples of crafters in the area of their expertise, mainly in vegetable fibers and textiles and ceramics. So it was important for them what the other persons can do and what they do. Also do explain the process of building a project. And this is very important because the project thinking, the methodology of project that we try to explain them could help them better to develop a series of objects with more liaison with each other, a kind of collection. And this is for approaching the market. This is much more interesting than doing very simple objects and very different objects that have no connection with each other. So the crafters build their own project with materials of their expertise, but with new visions, new approaches for new markets. And after that, the crafter developed the objects or collections. They creating their project always with our support. We support everything since the first thinking until the branding, the package. So we try to figure all this, what they want to do. So it was a very interesting training. Here's some examples. On the left, it was textile. She's a hand weaver it's a very good hand weaver. She never tried the circular loom, so it was innovative for her. Also in the middle we have the fish scales in these little objects, and we have the straw in the chairs with new designs and new approaches. On the right, it was the oldest crafter that we have in our training, and she was very homesick about Iceland. It was a very beautiful island, and so we get some images from the island. She was embroidering, so she embroidered the image of the island, and she made beautiful props about this. They are really beautiful, and they was a huge success. I hope she still make it in her own production. So after this, it was in this training that I knew Eduarda Vieira. So she showed me the products that she made in the loom. Repassa Soriano is an origin of 17th century. It's a traditional textile, and we talk about it, and we saw that we could build really a very interesting collection on shoes. So for 1 year, we work this, and we work only by email, messenger, and phone. We never meet each other, and she made the first samples. I choose the colors, we choose the drawings, we minimize the drawings. We didn't change the drawings, we just minimize them because they are shoes, so we have to do it smaller. And then she made the cloths, and she sent it to me, and we made the collection. And after 1 year, in May 2018, the source collection was presented. All the shoes are numbered. They are 25 by color. They have a tag containing the number, the crafter name, and crafter certification number. What you see is a flyer that we always send with each shoes for the people who get it, because we sell it online and also on stores. The people know about how the process and know about the crafter. So this is very important for communicating all the process and communicating the crafter that is behind the process. After that, we made this Dali Azores. This is very important for the designers. This was it's an award-winning shoe, with German Design Award. It's a very important award, and it was the first time that it was made to a shoe, the eco design category. So it's important, not only the award, but above all, it was because how it was made. It was about the thinking behind the shoe. So it's a shoe from the brand with a Corcatex. It's a very specific and award-winning yarn made in Portugal. Also, it's made of cork and cotton. Is produced also in white cork, natural rubber, and a vegan lining that is anti-perspirant, anti-odor, and is recycled. So I'm going to talk a little bit about resources about this textile. It was also with Eduarda. So we start a connection in the first collection, and then we stay together. And it was also about Repassa Soriano. We made it with 2 colors, about a ton sur ton. It's a kind of yellow, a yellow-brown color. It was hand woven by Eduarda. So it's a very sustainable hand woven, not only because of being crafted, but also because of the yarn, because the yarn is cotton and is cork, and this is very sustainable. So the final textile is very delicate. It have a soft and dry touch, a little bit like ThusThat silk, because of the cork. It's giving this this dry touch, and it's made in a registered shoe of the brand Dali Azor, Dali Longwing, and it's also belongs to a limited line of 25 pairs. So not only this is a resource, as cork is a resource. So Portugal is very proud of being the first exporter in the world of cork. So we produce a lot of cork, not enough, because now it's not enough, because everybody wants cork because it's really a wonderful material. It's 100% natural, is recyclable, we never throw it away. We always recycle, even the dust. For instance, the remains of the dust is used to cover this Cork-Atex yarn. So everything is used in cork. Also, cork oak are one of the 35 most important ecosystems in the world for preserving biodiversity. It's used in very technological aspects, like in NASA and European Space Agency. So we try to do the best, and we try to use the best materials. The Cork-Atex is a yarn that is made with the partnership between two companies, Setas and ThusThat, and it's really an innovation, because the substrate with cork additives, it's a radical innovation. That's why it was really a award-winning yarn. So it's the cotton together with cork taste, and above all, it comes together with the characteristics of each fiber. So it's comfort, it's breathability, it's touch and appearance of cotton, but also have the natural comfort and warm feeling. It's hypoallergenic, and you have a very good high friction resistance. And this is a good resilience. It's very interesting because this is a yarn for the textile industry. The other resources are the people who work together in this project, is the micro company that makes the cuts for the components, the little factory that makes the shoes, the crepe sole producer that is also in the same space. Also, the boxes are made in Felgueiras. The antibacterial microfiber is made in Spain, but is really very near. So we try to use the suppliers that are really next to us, and when we don't have it, we try to do it the near that we can do it. So this is the face behind the product, and this is important to see the people. This is me, I'm the designer, I'm the main idea of the project. Albertino Oliveira from Setas and Cork-Atex. They work together for the Cork-Atex with Agostinho Afonso from ThusThat. Our star is Eduarda Vieira, is the crafter that she's there with the loom. Also, we have Mario Mesquita, is a big supporter of the brand, always giving the information about new products, the sustainable products they are producing in the factory in Spain. Joaquim Cunha is a shoe manufacturer, and Cristiano Castro is the sole manufacturer. So these are the faces of almost, not all, of the contributors of this project. So we talk about Dali Azor, and we think that it's an integrated solution for design, crafts, technology, and industry. And this is, I think, the importance of the shoe is that it was never done before in Portugal. And as we combine these four sectors, we take a further step for this, because it's a dimension beyond the object itself, because it's not only about design and craft. We use technology, and we use traditional production. So this is not easy to gather all these four sectors together for a shoe. So this all of this was made about design management, and this is important that the design have this characteristic of taking together a lot of sectors and build this kind of innovative perspectives and transsectorial products. So this is an experimental model. As you can see, for 25 pairs, it's really little, but this is important because it's triggered a broader thinking about the Portuguese heritage, because we have the Portuguese heritage with this very specific rapaz açoriano, made with a very technological yarn, also made in Portugal, awarded internationally, and made in a traditional industry of footwear in Portugal. So we combined these three sectors, and it was design who made this possible. So it's we thought it was completely fulfilled with this project, this kind of process of these sectors. So also we have not only about this project, but about the brand, we also have life cycle goals. So, and those reuse of resources, we try that our products are really durable. And when they are not durable, the people can send it to a platform that tell us that our product is there, and we get it, and we dismantle, and then we send it to the different industries. We try to achieve zero waste. It's difficult. It's really difficult to achieve zero waste, but we try, because we really reuse every little pieces that are cut off the productions. We try to use also the few different materials in each shoe. That in footwear is really different, because we have a lot of structural components in the shoe, so we need a lot of materials. We try to ensure that design, handcrafts, industry, and technology create synergy together for new products. Also, the remains of the cork we reuse to make props, and with this kind of the microfiber in Spain that we bought in Spain, we try to use also industries that use this kind of recycle thinking, because they have to produce this kind of very technological leaning, but they also use this recycle thinking. About our sustainable goals, we also try. So we try to be a greater social and environmental responsibility. Also, we work with factories that work in accordance with collective labor contracts in Europe. Also, we work with certified artisans, because we want to dignify the traditional know-how. And we try to be an example of good practice, always talking about how we do the things, and try that other brands and students that are thinking about creating brands do it in a very sustainable way, in a very positive way and responsible way. So this is the award. It was given to this room because it was paid tribute to outstanding and commendably realized design work in the context of a specific category. Now this is eco design we are talking. These are some awards that we have had in our brands. Some of them are given to the brand, some of them are given to some specific shoe or sneaker. So we try to go and to see if our products are really good and we are in the right path. And I'm finishing this with a nice video. Thank you very much. These are some contacts, and I'm going to stop the sharing of the video. So I hope you like it. Anything that you want to ask me, it's really okay.
Thank you so much, Marita, for your presentation and sharing your collection and approaches. It was really interesting. I found it was a great example of practices and processes which emphasize sustainability and craftsmanship and the relationship between it. And it's great to see, especially the role that localization plays in this. It's a beautiful synergy, so much appreciated. You can also find the link to Marita's website in the chat, so take a look for that. We'd now like to open up for some questions. First, we had a couple via the chat, so I'll read these out. For Kevin, I'm not sure if you're still there. No, Kevin is gone. Okay. Kevin, are you there?
I am sorry. I was
Yeah,
trying to find the mute.
We had a question from Alexandra. She was asking about the ceramic pieces that you produce, whether it's possible to use these practically, for example, for serving food, or do they have more of a sculptural application?
It's a bit of both, actually. So the food safety is really based on the glaze. So we were really, just for the sake of kind of making a point, we wanted to make the glaze from the waste as well. Some of them are food safe, some of them are not. It depends on kind of the glaze that you made. So we made a number of glazes, but yeah, if you use the food safe glaze, it's fine.
Okay, thank you so much. Victoria, are you there?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
We had a question that was asked during your presentation, so perhaps you can respond to this. It was from Shikar asking, isn't circular economy another way of greenwashing, as the idea is still centered towards the economy? Would you like to respond to this, or maybe explain a bit about the concept of greenwashing, because this is spoken about quite a lot these days?
Well, greenwashing is something that has an argument behind it. So I don't understand really the question. Is because the economy word is involved that is not sustainable, or I don't understand why should be circular economy or a circular process unsustainable because the word economy is involved. I mean, economy is something we have to work with. So it has to be subject to human activity. And in a triple balance, we talk about sustainability from a sustainability, economic sustainability, a social sustainability, and an environmental sustainability. So economy is nothing to be avoided, it's something to be faced in a different way. This is what circular economy is about. But above all, is about production. It's a new production system in which doesn't exist the concept of waste. And we have seen here today the presentation, Kevin's presentation, which is based on that, and how we can use byproducts and in a totally different way. So I don't think that circular economy is greenwashing at all.
Okay, thank you so much. Shikara, I hope that gives you some new perspective to think about. We'd now like to open up the floor to the audience. If anybody would like to ask a question or make a statement, you can press the raise hand button. It is at the bottom of your screen in the middle. If you are shy and you don't want to turn on your microphone, that's fine. You can also type questions in the chat or make any comments. We'd love to hear from you. Just going to wait a second to see if anybody raises their hand. No other questions from anybody? This is your opportunity. Yes, we have a question from Laura Miguel.
Hi, everyone. Do you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell our speakers that there were many reactions in the chat. They didn't stop. There were many people saying that it's amazing the job you do, all of you. And I think that we need to say that because maybe you were speaking and you were not noticing, but the chat was, it didn't stop with smileys with hearts and smileys with stars. And I think that we just need to tell you that because everyone says that it's inspiring, that there are such great ideas that we can, that are also inspiring for the craft sector, that I think that we need to continue this path. And as there was a comment of Marina from Made in Europe, they issued this week as well a newsletter with devoted to sustainability. And they had a huge feedback from the people. So this is a really interesting topic that is, people need to talk about this. And I think that we are taking care of it, and we just need to have these inspiring examples as yours to continue this path. And I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We have another question. This is from Nuala, and she asks, are there any initiatives to financially support apprentices or craftspeople that can provide repair services in order to extend the life of materials and objects? So I guess this is a general question to the community here, because I'm sure many people have these kinds of resources and information. So if anybody would like to speak and share, or else post some links, that would be super helpful. Does anybody have any advice to give? All right. Okay. Well, please feel free to share. We'd love to hear from you. If there are no further questions, you can speak now. Otherwise, that brings this webinar to a close. A huge thank you again to all of our wonderful speakers, María, Victoria, Kevin, and Marita. You're all doing incredible work and really adding to new innovations and new thought around the relationship between sustainability and consumption and how we can change practices within craft and in everything that we do. So thank you so much. And a reminder to everybody that there will be more webinars to come within the new European Bauhaus series. So please keep an eye on the social media channels of World Crafts Council Europe and our website, and we will make some announcements about that. We'll also publish the recording of this webinar in the coming days. It will be on YouTube and also on our website. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Rachel. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening. And on behalf of the team, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was a
Bye.
pleasure.
Bye.